I don't care how hard it is, because it's already over for me. And I meant that how I said it. It is almost 5 in the morning. My favorite person is sleeping. And of course, I can't sleep. So, I guess this first episode is going to be a late night, late early morning chatting.
Um, it, it- it's very simple advice, actually, but write it down. Write it all down. If you get a fucking feeling that if funny things start to happen, right? If you start to notice some funny fucking behavior from a person, and you think that something is about to happen, something's about to pop off similar with you, or if you are going through it right now. One of the best things, in my opinion, from my experience, one of the best things that you can do in a fucking awful situation is write it down. Keep a journal. Keep a diary. Okay? Because, we all hear it all the time, right? When people come forward about abuse later on, it's like, well, why did you wait so long? Why didn't you say anything at the time? And those are, and anyone who knows anything about situations like this is that they're fucking terrifying.
Uh, when I look, when I saw this clip, I was just taken back because what she's saying here is so important. And if more people could start doing that, it would help way more than people think. I wrote everything down, and it was truly the thing that saved my life. It's crazy because, all right, let me step back a little bit. When I went through and this was within the last 3 years, so some of you who know me and have been rocking with me since 2020 is aware of some things that have happened. But for those of you who are stumbling upon this and finding out otherwise, it was a domestic violent situation, and it was very toxic and just extremely unhealthy. No matter how much we fought to give love and attention to the relationship, trust me, it wasn't what I had been convinced and what I had convinced myself of it being. That being said, the fact that I had gone through everything I had went through and managed to document it, as well as have timestamp markers and just little notations that I was making in regards to try to help the person I was with at the time. It streamlined and made therapy so much easier. It's very unfortunate that proof lies on the shoulders of the victims, but I understand why, in a sense, mainly because of so many falsified accusations have been put out there. So I get why it kind of leans against them, However, when there's actual proof and irrefutable facts, I think that's where we cross the line and we take it a little too far. 5 a.m. rambling is kicking in, so trying to get back on track on the importance of this message here. She made the video. I experienced it. I agreed. I made a post. Some of you guys were on my post saying how hard and how difficult it is and how you don't think it's a good idea. Trust me, I understand that. I did it somehow in blinder mode. Like I said, I wasn't even aware that that is what I was doing. But when I got out and took it to therapy and we were able to look at everything, trust me when I say it really does help and it makes a difference. I know it's hard right now, but it will benefit the future you so immensely. And it will benefit your therapist if you have a good one. If you have one like how I did, I got lucky. And I will say this 1,000 times over, anybody who comes and sits with me on my story, I am so lucky. I am lucky. I am one of the lucky ones. But yeah, I gave it to my therapist, and we used it in my healing. We used it to help break up that trauma bond. We used it to help free impressions and ideologies that was placed on me, and to give myself clarity to truly see what things were. And it also helped me keep my sanity at the same time, because so many people were kind of tilting their head and asking in a way like, is that really what happened? And it's a shitty place to be in. I understand that with the release of Quiet on the Set and what Nicole was talking about was workplace related, but it holds merit and truth in relationships as well. Writing out what is going on, even if it's just an inkling, the start of it, helps you prove that there was a pattern, and it helps, like I said, keep you grounded and give you sanity when everything kicks up and starts flying around and people try to convince you otherwise of your truth. I was in a very messed up place. I had one side telling me that it was abuse, while I had a different side telling me that it wasn't, and that I need to pretty much let them off the hook because this is what they always do, and it just wasn't for me. And looking back on that is like absolutely wild. Like, to think about how many people were very aware that that was that individual's type of personality and temperament, and they just kind of shrugged it off and was just like, this is a reoccurrence with them and you're no different, versus holding them accountable for their actions and being like, how many more times is this going to happen? You need to stop, you need help. It's absolutely insane. And you don't discover a lot of these things until after the fact. Like, hindsight is 2020. And the fact that I wrote it down and I invested in just keeping a log and keeping documentation, when I was able to finally get out and get away and actually hold my thoughts and go through it with a professional that has no bias and no gain of either being on my side or being on their side. Like, their whole thing is literally to just get the picture and get the facts so that they can work with me. Having that and then holding it in comparison to what was being said to you this message out because it's important. Having that and holding it in comparison to what's being said to you when you're going through therapy is vital. It's vital. A lot of people think that just writing it out is just to have proof to post it and expose your abusers, which if that is what you would like to do, then by all means do so. I used mine for a different reason. I used mine, one, because I'm just a writer and I have so many journals and books and notations and just things everywhere. I just document everything. I'm a walking library. But in addition to having that, I used it for my healing, and I'm so glad I had it, because it wasn't that my therapist didn't believe me. It's just, again, they weren't there. They are going off of a one-sided story, and even though their job is to help me, their job is also to tell the truth and to be transparent and to not coddle, but to heal and get me moving forward. And a lot of that is to face the truth. Know your roles. What did you play in a relationship? What did they do in a relationship? And that of the sorts. Because unpopular opinion, sometimes it's not them, sometimes it is you, and you're actually the abusive one, and you're the one who is projecting and putting things out, and to avoid consequence, you're spinning a story. So again, I got lucky, and my therapist was absolutely phenomenal in investigating and getting me balanced, or at least getting me to a place to start becoming balanced. And when she would challenge some of the instances and situations that I would bring up and tell her, and she would, challenge it and say, well, can you tell it to me again? And can you tell me from a different perspective? And just to make sure that the story was cohesive, I was like, I don't have to do that because I have notes. I have proof of it. And she was just like, what do you mean? And I brought out just this log of everything about our relationship, the happy times, the sad times, anytime that they were upset with me, anytime that they had belittled or berated me over something that I didn't think was a big idea or a big deal, but I was too afraid to say something, because several chapters down was an instance where I did say something over something that was extremely small, and it blew up the way that it did. And she was just like, oh my gosh, how did you write this? And I was like, I would just write. I would be up late at night, not able to sleep. I would be downstairs just minding my business or just laying in bed, and I would just grab my phone and I would just write my thoughts. Or I would be in the garage crying where no one could see me, and I would just write my thoughts, write my notes, look up articles, save article links, and send them to myself. I had an entire tab list of articles about narcissistic abuse and how to support your partner with different mental disorders, because they had shared with me that those types of things ran in their family, but they didn't want to go get help or therapy because of negative things that have happened from it. So I was trying to figure out how to manage it at home without interference of a professional mind, because it didn't seem like that's what they wanted to do, even though they promised me that that's what they would do. And I just had a log. I just had a log with dates and time, and I had it on my phone. I had handwritten notes. I had saved tabs. I had emails to myself. I had Facebook messages to myself. And we pulled all of it. I paid money that I didn't have because I was financially restricted in that relationship. Everything was put in their name. Everything they wanted to be the provider, and I was perfectly okay with that. So lesson learned there. But I was perfectly okay with that, and so trying to get caught back up was difficult. But what I did have was all those notes. And I paid this company, this program, to pull every single Facebook Messenger message. Every single one. I pulled all of them all the way back to, I want to say 2012. I'll have to look at that again. But I mean everything. I mean messages from people that I didn't even talk to for years before that. It pulled everything, media files, details. So every single meme, every single voice message we ever sent each other, every single argument, yelling, screaming, every cry for help I sent out to somewhere else, all of it was logged, and all of them had timestamps. And we used that to get me through. They were able to look at everything and draw a conclusion of me suffering from PTSD, as well as possibly being a victim of narcissistic abuse. But because narcissistic abuse, or not narcissistic abuse, but because narcissism as a personality disorder actually identified in the DSM-5, they didn't feel comfortable enough fully naming it that, because that would require evaluation and therapy and things like that of the other party who was not in the room. All my therapist said to me at the time was, they're not here, but just from what I'm reading, their responses, how they're talking to you, the hot and cold very quickly, and how you're sitting here in front of me after all of this, I would safely say that they need to be on medication for the rest of their life. And they just left it at that and said, but they're not here, and there's nothing we can do about that side. All we could do is work on what we got, and that's you. And if you're willing to do the work, we can get through it. But I'm gonna let you know right now, it's going to be very hard. And I said, I don't care. I don't care how hard it is, because it's already over for me. And I meant that how I said it. I said, at this point, this is a final draw. It either works or I've made peace. So we got to work, and the fact that I wrote it down and have those notes to use in my therapy, in my re-exposure, to actually being able to walk back to those points in that relationship and look at the times that there was wrong, and look at when I was wrong, and be able to start piecing and healing those patches. I am so proud of that version of myself for being able to document and write literally the blueprint I needed to go back and get those pieces and heal them. I am aware that it is difficult, and that somehow I got lucky by having blinders on when I was writing. So I understand that this won't be as easy for anyone else, especially if it's dealing with relationships that are within their home. I was very, very lucky that they weren't necessarily a prior not that I'm aware of. But they also didn't know that I was writing these things either. I think if I had shared that I was keeping just a regular daily journal and just writing things down, it probably would have come up in a lot of our arguments. It probably would have been weaponized and used against me. Like a lot of the things that I had shared with them was weaponized and used against me at the time. Um, but it's whatever you can do, whatever you can do, if you can set up an email that nobody knows about, and just write and send it to that email, and then once it's sent, go into that sent box and then delete it out of the email that you sent it from. But it will be safe in an unknown email that only you have access to. And don't put that email down for nothing else. Use it only for documentation purposes, because it has a timestamp, it has a date, it has your notes, it shows where it was sent from, and in the event that it gets stuck somewhere, there's metadata. Just find a way to do that. Or if you have that one friend who you can truly trust, use them. But okay, and just a quick point, I got into the space where I stopped trusting everybody because I couldn't tell up from bottom from everyone coming at me from every different direction with something to say to me. I had their dad approaching me, I had their sister approaching me, I had my friends approaching me, I had their friends approaching me. So I understand if you think you have a friend but you're not feeling trustworthy of them simply because of everything that's going on, and they currently have you on the ropes. So maybe not use a friend for a diary, but if you are lucky enough and you do have that one friend, that one internet friend who doesn't know anybody, ask them if you can send stuff to them, or use an email or whatnot. If you have two different social media profiles, or if you're able to have a social media profile, or you have one that they don't know about, send it to yourself there. Write it down, put it in a journal. Just put it in notes on your phone. Be careful if you have a phone, but like you want to not upload it, but like you're using a certain app that may possibly upload it to a cloud that is shared. You don't want this information getting anywhere to the person or people who are doing the damage. You have to just be very, very mindful and very careful, and just tread lightly, take deep breaths, and go slow, because you are already so nervous and on edge that at any point you can have a slip up and it can make everything so much more worse. So please tread lightly, in comparison to your situation, however bad it is. Just tread lightly and make sure that you are crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and making sure that you are getting this information in a safe place. I said earlier that this would be great if everybody could do this, and I understand that not everybody can. But as someone who is studying psychology and is turning her lessons and hurts and pains and experiences into helpful material and content like this, I cannot stress enough that if we had this information, if we had good, valid information to add to case studies and to look at, we would be able to start pushing for stronger laws to protect victims against things like this. Psychological and mental abuse is still abuse. There are cases where people have had their brains scanned and there have been legitimate shrinkage of parts of the brain, almost as if they have suffered from a traumatic brain injury. So the more we can get on record that these things do happen, the easier we can build a case to push for more protective laws and legislation. that would actually benefit and help everybody and provide resources for people to start properly healing and not continue the acts of traumas and abuse and things of the sort, reactive abuse and things of the sort, and pushing it, further down the line. I know that a lot of people right now have some major comments on what's going on with Drake Bell, and they were like, we don't feel sorry for him because he did it to his victims. But that's a reactive to everything that he's gone on. And I'm not saying but as in like, oh well, he has a past. That's not what I'm saying at all. And my therapist made that a very strong point when she was talking to me about my reactive abuses and traits. She was saying, I'm not saying that this is an excuse. I'm not saying that this is correct. What I'm saying is that we have a trigger point. We have an epic center, and we can start working towards dismantling that so that you can be better. And I think we need to give a lot of our victims that opportunity to go to their epic centers and start dismantling it so that they can be better, because a lot of us don't want to be the way that we are. We don't want to be scared. We don't want to have unaliving thoughts. We don't want to constantly feel like people are only going to hurt us. We don't want to live those type of lies. We don't. And we deserve a fighting chance. You deserve a fighting chance. And it's just very, very, very important that you give yourself every opportunity that you can possibly have so that you can have that fighting chance. As hard and as difficult as it is, write it down. Because even if it's not used for anything else, use it for yourself to go back and save the versions of you that you couldn't help in that moment. But you can definitely help in the future. With the future you can use these notes, these documentations, these logs, to be able to go back and heal the things that are currently happening to you now, or did happen to you. Write it down before the memory blocks it out. Write it down before things get hazy. Write it down so that you have merit to your word when they go on their smear campaigns, and when they send the flying monkeys, when they challenge you and say, well, when did I say that? You have a log. When you are finally free and safe and in that courtroom, if you need to be, or in your therapy office when you need to be, whatever it may be, from work, relationships, parents, doesn't matter, any form of abuse, write it down. Write it down. Write it down. Write it down.